dirt bikes had taught me to be disciplined in so much stuff, which has helped with business and my personal life and what I see with what I am doing with my kids.
Yes.
And I think it starts at a young age. So when you're not teaching that sort of discipline,
Yeah.
it's sort of doing a disservice to, I don't know, the little guys. That's why, like, a lot of the series locally, I think all the local deals, they should really just lean towards little bikes on Saturday, big bikes on Sunday, racing wise, so that everyone gets the proper laps and track, or just have one race be little bikes only if parents and people don't want to be there for 2 days, and
Well,
vice
I
versa.
also think there shouldn't be 7 classes for the 85 class and 6 classes for the 125 class and 5 classes for 250 and 7 vet classes. It's just we keep dicing the pie up so much, and then the excuse is, well, we have to shorten the motos because we're going to run out of sunlight. And I'm like, well, you know,
Okay,
again, I
coach.
show my age.
If I'm being devil's advocate here, because I grew up as a millennial right on the precipice of them changing from novice, amateur, and pro, and that's what it was. And then things started changing to, oh, here's the 7 to 11 class, here's the schoolboy, here's the college boy, here's all these age groups. Triathlon and a lot of, I would say, just other sports in general have age groups. Like whenever
Mhm.
I go race any of the marathons or stuff that I do now, I'm in the 35 to 39-year-old group,
Yeah.
and I might finish fourth in that group, but I might have won the 20 to 25 group. So
Yeah.
we're why is it that those sports started with the age group? Wouldn't it be better just to be like beginner, novice, and expert, and you group them all together?
I think that's the brilliant way to go because let's just say you do it in 10-year increments, right? There's a big difference between a 10-year-old and a 19-year-old. If you're doing 10 to 19, 20 to 30. I just think back in 78 when I was racing, you had the 80 class. We didn't have 85. You had the 80 class, the 125 class, the 250 class, the open class, and then you had the pro class, pro 125, pro 250. Now there's 53 classes at Loretta's. There's got to be some kind of a happy medium in between there. I always parallel it against, when you were in elementary school, you were the low man on the totem pole. You worked your way up to 5th grade. You were big fish. Then you jump into middle school. Now you're the small fish in the big pond. You work your way up to 8th grade. You're the big fish in the big pond. And then all of a sudden you get to high school and you start all over again. I think that's part of the learning curve. I think you've got to get your teeth kicked in. They've got to learn how to fail. Use that word, take that with a grain of salt. I don't see getting 3rd place when you move up to a new class or last place in the new class as being failure. You just got to work your way back up. But you grew up in a generation that if you didn't win on Saturday, most of your friends quit. Most
Mhm.
of us, growing up in the 80s and 90s, if we got beat on Saturday, we worked harder on Monday. We didn't find an excuse and go quit. Now you have the problem with the helicopter parents on top of kids who have no backbone and no work ethic. So it's one of those. I just think that we've overcomplicated how many different classes, and I'm not here to bash on any promoters. I understand they need to make money, but it's just we get the domino effect of there's so many motos. To your point, why do we not just do small bikes on one day and do big bikes on the other? It's gotten so out of control. They're doing entire weekends of nothing but small bikes and entire weekends of nothing but big bikes because there's so many classes. But that's a cash grab. Sorry, that's just the reality of it.
Well, coach. Okay, so for instance, dude, I would love if money's the issue, and I think there's a lot of caveats and
Mhm.
hypotheticals to that, because like fuel cost, cost of motorcycles, cost of
Sure.
entry, whatever, the economy, all that stuff contributes to, hey, we need to rise our prices. Like freaking Apple just decided that. I remember when the iPhone 10 came out
Yeah,
and they were trying to have $1,000 phone. I was like, oh hell no, am I ever going to spend a freaking $1,000 for a cell phone? 3 months
sure.
later, I was in there getting $1,000 phone. Now the $1,600 phone is now going to be $2,000 because of all the tariffs and what's going on with the strat and microchip shortages. But I always got to do this. What's a show, coach? My point being is when I go race a marathon or something, it's like, or an Ironman, it is $600 entry or $200 entry for some of the half marathons that I've done, and I'm totally okay with it. I'm like, "Hey, I'm gonna go get an hour, hour and a half worth of exercise, sometimes up to 5 hours." It seems totally worth it. So, if the issue is this $30 entry fee, so now we have to have 9 different classes, I'd be totally okay with $150 for an entry fee if my kid was out there for 25 minutes for 2 motos.
But the caveat is, how long is your athlete out there for those 2 motos? That's the problem. The price is going up and the races are getting shorter. That's where the
Well,
biggest disjoint's coming in.
but that's what I'm saying is I would like to see, I wouldn't mind spending more to then race longer. Like towards the end of
Right.
my career, I was, young, poor kid that needed money. So I would go race some off-road races, and
Mhm.
it was great. I was like, oh, I'll ride for 2 hours. It's going to cost me $60 to enter, which is twice as much as what a normal local race was. And if I win, I make $1,000. Like that's way better than the 100% pro payback of 10 pros show up at a race. I have to win both motos to win $250. Like it
Right.
was worth more to go do the off-road stuff, even though I didn't really like off-roading that much. But
Well, you bring up the principle of macroeconomics, right? I've talked to a very high profile person at Ironman Properties, and I said, "When are you guys going to stop raising your prices?" And they said, "When the races stop selling out." So that pretty much, it's like your Apple. You said you weren't going to spend 1,000, and then 3 weeks later you're spending 1,000, and now that 1,600 is now going to be 2,000. Stop buying the phone.
well, and coach, how many problems would dissipate if the barrier of entry wasn't so low,
Hmm.
right? Like if
Hmm.
if you made it to where your kid, it was $100 for him to enter as opposed to the $30. Or people in the chat room, I haven't signed my son up or anything to go race a local race right now. So I just know that it was $30 or something. But
Yeah.
hypothetically, let's just make it overly expensive to the point where it's like it has to be purposeful for you to go do that on the weekend with your kid. What kind of demographic are you going to attract, right? And you're probably going to have some of these issues disappear of people bitching
Hmm.
all the time because you're getting, like when I was doing the Moto Academy with AJ, he was talking to me about like, dude, that was the exact thing. Like when our prices, we wanted to give back and have everyone come. Well, we were getting uh, people coming and just basically wanting free daycare, and they've got a little electric Chinese motorcycle. And they said once we raised the prices, then it was like, here's a kid that actually wants to learn. The family is not for a one-off. They're like more involved in the sport, and we can actually give back more. I'm like, hey, that makes perfect sense.
Yeah. Well, there's a couple things to keep in mind. I remember going to the races, and there was no gate fee. You literally drove into the parking lot and you paid when you went to go race. Now there's a gate fee, there's a spectator fee, there's a car parking fee, there's a race entry fee. The race entry fee has additional fees because it's a Loretta's qualifier, it's an area qualifier, it's a regional qualifier. There's a transponder fee, there's a practice fee, there's a portalet fee, there's an oxygen fee, there's a dirt parking lot fee, there's a port. It just, where
Okay,
does
for a
it
second
stop?
there, I was like, how do you know all the? Then you started joking
Well,
around a
it's
little.
in all fairness, right? You got to pay to practice, you got to pay to race, you got to pay for a transponder, you've got to pay a fee that's an added on fee that goes directly to MX Sports because it's a qualifier, either an area or regional. You have your AMA fee.
But
Those are
not at
hard
every
fees.
race.
Damn near every race. If you're doing a qualifier for Loretta's, it's there 100%. So, and then on top of that, now we have a spectator fee. So you have a car full of 4 or 5 people. Now you have $100 to get in the gate just to watch. Instead, it used to be you'd make your money by how many entries you would get, and then your family. And then, I used to bring my buddies to the races to watch, not to watch me, but to watch. We were fortunate in Orlando. Todd Hewitt had left California riding for Team Honda, and he moved into Orlando. He shows up on this CR80, and he's jumping stuff that the 125s weren't jumping on. My friends loved it. They just all jumped all over it. But just the idea of being able to go to a race, I think the threshold of entry is not only the expensive dirt bike, but then if you want to go practice your dirt bike like this, it just never ends in regards to the add-on fees. And we've talked to several track owners, and it's like the cost of insurance continues to go up, so that doesn't make it any easier for them.
That's a big part.
It's expensive to run a dozer. It's expensive to run the water. It's expensive to have staff, flaggers, to prep the track. It's just, like this right here, like Robbie Corley's saying, $60 spectator fees. It's just silly. And that's where there's got to be a little bit more of an open-minded approach to where, if you say that you're in the entertainment business, then do nothing but charge gate fees and let people race for free and bring 5,000 people and spectate. I mean, if you want to be in the entertainment business, if you want to be in the racing business, let's try to get more people racing, and don't nickel and dime them of all the other people that they bring to the races, because they're probably going to buy something at the concession. They're probably going to buy some merch. But for the rider to get on the track and to have, like I said, AMA fee, transponder fee, practice fee, race fee, MX Sports fee, then you have the gate fee, then you have all these. That's just for the athlete to show up and take his expensive dirt bike and put it on the track. So why are less and less people going to the track? Well, first of all, the threshold of buying the bike is high, but then to take it to the track, they're nickel and dime to death. I mean, when it starts becoming $200, $250 to just go ride for a day, that doesn't count fuel to get there and back, race fuel in the bike, oil, maintenance. And
all right, I guess I was just going from 1,000-foot view of, I personally, from experience, would be willing to, as opposed to a $30 to $60 race entry fee, I'd be up to 2 to 3 times more if I was getting the proper time on the track, where I felt like the money was worth it. Because at $60, you do not feel worth your. I'm there from 5 a.m. to freaking 7 p.m. and you get 2 little motos. That is what I'm saying is not feels.
Well, that's why I'm saying, why are your motos only 6 laps? Let's say 8 to 10 minutes, because there's 933 classes and everybody has to get on the track. Well, the money is being generated by how many classes you can get an entry fee for. So the model needs to be flipped upside down.
Well, and I believe across the country there is lower turnout. I mean, truthfully, what is wild, coaches, Colorado, where I live currently, has honestly been a pretty big mecca for dirt bikes. I mean, California, of course, is the biggest, but there used to be 600 to 1,000 riders show up for races, and now it's kind of lucky if 200 go, right? And that's where I think people are starting to feel nickel and dimed. If you just maybe make the product cost more but give more back, then more people are going to come.
You hit the nail on the head. The people are paying more and getting less all the way around. And that's what's causing a big demise of a lot of it. You can't ask for more money and then cut down the amount of time they're on the motorcycle. And to your point, be there for 9 hours to race 2 10-minute motos. The model doesn't work. It's non-sustainable. It isn't.
Yeah.
And the only reason why the big races, the big amateur races, are still getting big numbers is because the ticket to Loretta's. That's the only enticement. And think about it. If you've got a son or a daughter that wants to go to Loretta's, you're going to go to the tracks that has the area and the regional. And that's the selling tool to agree to be a track that's been selected to be an area or a regional. But then you get stacked with all these layers of fees for the promoters. And this is, again, I'm not here dishing on promoters. I'm just talking about the business model. Take all the faces and all the names. I'm not a character assassinating anybody. But when I hear parents saying, I had one gentleman that drove 3 days from the West Coast.
This is probably the best comment. I didn't mean to interrupt. I just couldn't stop laughing.
Yeah. We had a gentleman that drove 3 days to go from California to Daytona, and he put a total of 38 minutes on his motorcycle. It doesn't make any sense to me. But on the flip side of that, as a parent, why would you do that? Stop doing that. But then you get, into the buy-in on the idea that if you're not at all these high profile amateur nationals, you're not going to get noticed, you're not going to get sponsored. And then you could get into the politics that if you're not supporting the big nationals, then the sponsors of the nationals aren't going to put you on their short list.
Well, truthfully, okay. Maybe I need to stop saying that word. It's sort of a filler word. Almost like that word, obviously. I hate it when people use obviously. And whenever I interview the riders or anything, it's no, it's not obvious.
Right.
That's why I'm
Exactly.
asking you. Okay.
Yeah.
So stop fucking saying obvious.
It's
So
not
maybe I
obvious.
should stop fucking saying truthfully. Okay. If it was me, I would never own a track to begin with because the liability and you're really not going to make any money at it. Just plain and simple. And then the hard truth is if my kids were trying to make this a job or get sponsored, you don't dick around with the local stuff. You save your money, whatever. The fees suck, but if you're only going to 2 or 3 area and regional races, sweet, makes perfect sense. And then there's guys like Tomac, coach, who is a native to Colorado, and
Mm-hmm.
the only time I ever raced him at a local race was one of the state championships, and regrettably, he took my front wheel out on the start because I started next to him, on his 250 Honda of Houston motorcycle, outpulled my 450 with me being 135 pounds. Not that I'm bitter about it at all. But that was the only time he ever showed up to a race was right before he was going to go pro. He never went to any local stuff. And so
Yeah.
from experience and me